welcome back to another great show, and I've got the family business guy back in the studio, Mr. John Broons. How are you, John?
Good, thank you, Mike.
Excellent. John, we were having a bit of a chat off air, a bit of a giggle, because you're saying sometimes families in business aren't quite sure whether they're at the crossroads or whether they're in crosshairs, and lots of things going on. What made you bring this topic up? What's it all about?
Well, crossroads to me is a fork in the road kind of thing. Do I turn left? Do I turn right? Do I make the choice? Do I stay? Do I go? Or do I commit longer? How do I want to make effect of change in the business? Sometimes family pressures will put you at a crossroads. Yeah. Sometimes the business pressures will put you at a crossroads. So the crossroads is something that, to me, comes to mind when we talk about families as they change, as younger people get older. How do we make our decisions? The younger people are thinking. At the same time, the older people are reaching their crossroads. How much time do we want to spend at work now? How do we make sure that we have enough money to do what we want to do? Do we stay at work, or do we sit at home twiddling our thumbs, or do we travel? So the crossroads can be, what are we going to retire to? And if you've never thought about it, because you've worked 24/7 for the last 40 years, you've not thought about retiring, and all the things that you might have wanted to do when you were 20, you've forgotten.
When you deal with lots of different families in business, and you've said a lot of crossroads there that people go through. Do you find there are two or three that really stand out or are common, no matter what? I know the family and business is different, but are there two or three that stand out in your mind as in, these are pretty common across the different families?
Crossroads, there are some similarities. There's always the younger generation that is looking to transition into the ownership place, or that running and operating the business take their turn to do what they feel is probably their, in some cases, inheritance, but sometimes it's just their turn. They're seeing things different in the marketplace to the way that the older generation has seen them. They feel that time has moved on and they want to make changes.
Do you find with the younger generation sometimes, because they are young and they're seeing different changes, and they can be a little bit impatient sometimes? Do you have to deal with that in your line of work, where you've got the younger generation going, John, I am ready, I'm stepping up, tell dad to move aside or mum to move aside, and you're going, maybe not quite so quick?
Impatience is always something that needs to be considered. You will find varying levels of impatience depending on how large the family is. If there's 4 or 5 siblings, or 3 or 4, the younger ones tend to be a little bit more impatient. The older ones might be more considered, or the older ones might be the ones that are impatient, and the younger ones are still in their learning phase. So everybody needs to be seen as an individual through the journey.
I was going to say, when you've got this going on, how do you deal with that dynamic that's happening? You say you're dealing with the issue of, I've got this particular younger generation getting impatient now, waiting to take what they can sometimes consider their rightful ownership of this thing. Move on, mum and dad, you've done, we're in. How do you go about dealing with that and structuring it so it actually works for everybody?
I've said before, if I've seen one family business, I've only ever seen one family business, and to some degree that particular issue relates a lot to size. Right. Some businesses will have the capacity to give younger generations opportunities outside of the existing business, or opportunities that are new and different inside the existing business.
Like give them a division to look after.
Yeah, or even create something that's a new product line for them to be creative with, and take it from inception all the way through to marketplace.
That's got to be exciting.
It is exciting, but not all businesses are capable of doing that. And not all parents are interested in allowing their children to take the reins in that fashion. But there are people that do see that as a really good process, an opportunity and a stepping stone to proving their worth to the older generation.
When someone's in this phase of, in this almost this transition phase, are you there measuring and making recommendations, or are you opening up the discussions and allowing them to make the decision amongst all the parties involved?
It's a family business. Everybody needs to be on the same page.
Yeah.
Those that aren't on the same page, if they're younger and they don't fully understand, they need to be educated and brought up to speed. Yeah, if they're older and they have a different perspective, we have to have some sort of resolution process in place that we can talk through the issue of why we're not following your particular chosen path. Yes. And that individual might want to then consider, he or she would be at a crossroads, do I stay or do I go? And in some cases it might be as a shareholder, not even working in the business, yes. But they need to be informed as to major changes and direction of the business.
Do you find that when people hit these, especially in this like succession crossroads, and we talk about people trying to step up to the next level, do you find that is really difficult for families? I know every family is different, but do you find it can be damaging to a family that doesn't get some advice or help get through this? Can it actually start pulling them apart?
Definitely. The danger of doing nothing is you get the same thing. And if there are frustrations that seem to rise up in younger people, or even sometimes the older people are frustrated, the younger ones don't step up. Those frustrations can boil over and things can be said that can actually change the dynamic at play, not just in the business, but also within the family. So it is these are dangerous times. Being at the crossroads is a matter of making a choice when the choice comes to you. So you're driving down the road, yep. You come to a fork in the road, you don't just sit there. Some people sit there because making the choice is too hard. So if you sit there and there's no change, what is going to happen is the change will evolve around you and the change will then be forced by the environment. And if you're not a part of that change, or you can be a part of that change, but the effect is upon you, not being not having that choice to be involved in the change, that can be really damaging. And the damage can have a ripple effect and go through next gen and through siblings. So.
You know, when you're talking that, so as an advisor, and you've seen lots of these things. I know when you've only seen one family business, you've only seen one family business, well, a family in business, as you like to call it. When you find, say we're talking about the younger generation just for a moment, not picking on them in particular, but there seems to be this big transition. When you go in and you talk to them, do you have that skill set that can say, you're almost ready, but I think you should do this course or you should do this course? Do you help them mature in a position or identify some of the gaps for them that can help them make decisions better?
Always. If I have the opportunity to support an individual's education and growth, personally or in business, I won't force anything upon anybody. No. I might make mention of a course that would be available that would be worthwhile. I might make mention of opportunities that might come available in the near future, not too distant future, or if I'm aware of certain other growth opportunities for individuals, whether it's universities or even other jobs in other industries, I might suggest those things, sometimes to the individual if I think it's, if it requires the whole group being aware of these opportunities, I will make those opportunities or the awareness of those available.
Now I know, like you personally, you run tech groups, which are fantastic, and Family Business Association, with one in Australia, and obviously you're a fellow with the American group as well there. When you go to family businesses, do you recommend them as part of the growth and as part of managing the crossroads, joining these groups that can learn from these other members? Do you think it's powerful enough for families? And if it is, what size should be involved?
There are all sorts of groups around the world that are available. In Australia, there are a number of groups. I suppose here, the education side of it, if I see that there is an opportunity, if I see that there is value in an individual going along and joining a group, I will suggest that. In Perth, we have something called a Curtin program. Curtin University run a business program. It's a very good thing. And there are different CEOs that I've recommended to go and do that program. There are different younger generation members in family businesses that I've recommended do that course. There are, as you mentioned, the Family Business Australia has forum groups. Sometimes that avenue and that forum is a great place for somebody from a family business to learn a little bit about family dynamics. It's not specifically a business education program where you'll get a degree or a certificate. Similarly, the tech, where overseas it's called Vistage. That is something also that's continuous learning, continuous professional development for an individual who's a CEO, and that will have different benefits. So if there's opportunities to learn about the field that you're working in, I think we should all be learning every day as much as we can. So most people work in their businesses, they're buried in their businesses 24/7. It's really hard when you're living that to actually step out and say, I need to take 2 or 3 hours out of this a week to learn a bit more about what I can do to make better decisions in my business.
John, what happens when you get someone, we talked about the T-junction, you mentioned that. How do you help someone who's just stuck? They just can't make a decision and they've gone, help me, or help Sally, or help John, or help Dad. How do you help someone in that position?
Depends on the individual. No, it does. It comes back to the individual and the relationship that I would have with that person. They would need to trust me. And trust here, we're talking about, Mike, I know you reasonably well. I trust you to look after the video programming. Would I trust you with my bank account? That's a different level of... So that's a different level of trust. Or would I trust you to look after my children? Or would I trust you to maintain my business for me? So again, here's a one-on-one issue where I would have to gain the trust of the person that I was able to have a conversation with them, to challenge them, and to work probably by asking lots of questions as to what they were stuck with. Why did they believe they were stuck?
You know, when you talk trust, and I talk trust with a lot of people, and for me it comes down to, one, the thing that you want to be trusted on when you're competent in it, so that's a given with yourself. But the other aspect of trust, because I think there's only really two, is that they believe you've got their best interests at heart. How do you as an advisor demonstrate to a person that it's their best interest you've got at heart and you're not just there because Dad's paying you to be there, for instance?
That only comes through the conversation. Being present, listening, and there are a lot of experts out there in their field that know what they talk about, and I'm sure when they are talking with their clients, they are communicating in such a way that their clients will trust them. So when it comes down to this kind of conversation where somebody is stuck and it's a very personal thing.
So this is a really personal, this is their life now.
In some cases, you might be recommending you need to see somebody who might be a psychologist, because it could be something much deeper. And I'm not a psychologist. So I have to work with the individual.
I must admit, I do like that about you, that when you recognise something, you're not frightened to go, hey, maybe this is someone else you should talk to, or maybe this is what you should do. You're very open to the fact you were there for them, and what's in their best interest, is what moves them forward.
I work with the family business system. So although I may be invited in by the founder of the business or the leader of the business, I make it well known that I'm looking after the family, all the members of the family and the business, so that the best outcomes are always achieved. It's not necessarily financially the highest level that we can achieve, but it will be the best outcome for the family and the business, so that we can continue to grow the way that we want.
We talk of crossroads, and I mean, we've talked to the younger generation, but then of course the older generation don't want to let go for a variety of reasons. One can be fear, can be what am I going to do? I haven't done anything else. How does the conversations with the older generation go when they are now in the crosshairs? Well, we might as well say they're in the crosshairs, because the young ones are gunning for them. Get them out. Yeah,
that's potentially correct.
Yeah.
These conversations, if they are the shareholders, then we need to have an understanding between the older generation and the younger generation that things don't necessarily move as fast as the younger generation want.
Yes,
but the older generation need to recognise the fact that maybe their use-by date's coming closer. And what does that mean? So how then do we transition the older generation in a way that's respectful, in a way that's understanding, in a way that's financially secure, for them to be able to choose their exit strategy as individuals.
It's interesting you mentioned financially secure, and we've all been around business for, and look, I'll be guilty of this as well. In some of my businesses, how I draw cash out may not be as per, as a proper business should be. And sometimes you find older generations, they're so used to, well, we need a bit of extra money, we'll just take that out of there, we'll take this out of here. But all of a sudden in the handover, do you find, and not just picking that particular one, that there is a tidying up of, say, some of the processes that need to be done to make it a better handover?
That'll depend on the business and the stage of business they're in.
Yeah.
Crosshairs, to some degree, if I was to draw one axis that said the family axis, where are we on the family axis? Are we the start off, just the founders of the business? Are we maybe moving to the second generation, or are we third or fourth generation? So that's one axis.
Yeah.
And we looked at that from a family point of view. Then we look at the business axis. Is it a start-up? Is it a mature business? Is it a growth phase? Right?
Yeah.
So where are we at from a business perspective? And so you've got the family business, and who are the owners? Is it just 2 or 3 shareholders? Or is it 10 siblings or cousins that are shareholders? Or have we gone to a privately public business where you've got up to a couple of hundred shareholders? Or then is it a public company? And then you'll have different levels of professionalism in the business, and you might have different governance structures. So it's not just a simple answer that you're asking me. We've got a real variety of opportunity and options there that need to be all investigated.
It is. I love that analogy of the crosshairs there, and it's fascinating. It'd be wondering how many people actually go away now and actually draw those crosshairs and match them up and say, aha. I think one of the crossroads that people do come to, when they realise the business is morphing or change is happening and they're a bit stuck, they have to make the decision of getting an advisor like yourself in. So a family business advisor or an advisor of some sort. What are some of the things they should put into consideration as a family, and should it be the whole family? Do you recommend the whole family should have a discussion first about engaging an advisor? What are some of your thoughts around that? Put you right on the spot.
Yeah, look, I never really know where the connection comes to a client family, because sometimes it'll be a younger generation member that will approach me, they've found me. Sometimes it will be an older generation person will have heard about me or been referred to me. So referral seems to happen quite often. For somebody to go looking for a family business advisor that has family business skills, looking for an FFI accreditation is great value from an international point of view. The Family Firm Institute, if you can see accreditation through that, that's a step in the right direction. In Australia, we have Family Business Australia, and we have accredited advisors, and I think they are specialised in their field of expertise.
Yeah.
So my field of expertise is in the business and in the soft skills, working with the family.
Right.
And accountants, if they're family business advisors in Australia, they're accredited with their profession and their skill levels. So there are different, depending on what you're looking for, you will be able to find them through the websites like the FFI website or the FBA website.
When someone goes looking, whether it's an older or younger generation, say it's the older generation, do you personally feel there's a benefit to them pre-discussing it with the family first that they're getting an advisor, or you just find that no matter how much that might be a good idea, it's just never the reality?
Someone has to lead the show.
Good answer. Yeah.
So if it's the older generation, the one person, the mother or the father, someone is going to say, I think we need your support and your help. What do you suggest we do next?
Yes.
In which case it might be a family meeting, or it might be a meeting of those people that have family that are working in the business, or it might be just a few family members. So it comes back to one family business is quite unique from another.
Yeah, it is interesting getting that perspective on there. For a family that doesn't have an advisor and they realise someone in their family is stuck and can't make a decision, whether it's to exit the business or move to the next step or sidestep to a better position, what are a couple of pointers you could give the leader of the family, for lack of a better word, to help someone in that? What would you say to them that could help someone in their family along to the next level?
If you came to me and said, my young son has been in the business for 2 years, he's struggling, he doesn't quite understand it, I would suggest maybe having a conversation with the son. Is this what you want to do? What would you like to do? Where do you see yourself? What are your goals? So try and improve the conversation between the older person, the parent and the child, and offer them an opportunity to see what the real world is like outside, potentially, because it may be the world of opportunity is not necessarily coming straight into the business. So that's just one option. I mean,
it's a great little, but some of the pointers, and you said that, and I found that quite interesting. They're very much the types of things we talk about in business, aren't they? Where you're going, what's your purpose, what are your values, what is it? Where do you see yourself in X amount of time? They're the types of questions we ask ourselves about our own business and running a business.
For sure.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting when a younger generation person will look to the older generation and say, do you really think, this is the right time for you to still stay here? And sometimes younger generation, they aren't owners of the business. They might have the responsibility and the authority to run the business, but if they don't own the business, there's a respect of parents that they just won't ask them to leave. In which case, it's a difficult circumstance.
Yes.
Where do we go from there?
When you have, and I know I'm conscious of your time, John, but I know you like to have a conversation with all the family members when you go in, and you feel that's very important. What are a couple of questions you're really looking for when you talk to them? I know it's probably different for each person, but you have some staples in like your techniques. You go, these are 2 or 3 that I'd really like to know up front about different people.
Really simple. Do you want to be where you are? Okay. Are you enjoying this? Okay. Is this good?
Yeah.
Do you feel like you're getting and giving value where you are today?
Wow.
Real simple questions.
I can imagine some of the reactions from those questions. They're quite simple, but quite on the money.
Well, they're challenging you. They're challenging you to move from it's all okay, right, to there are choices to be made here. Okay? We're at the crossroads. What do you want to do? How do you feel? Is it a green light, a red light, or a yellow light that you're facing?
Yeah.
How do you want to approach the intersection in the first place? Do you want to have as much information before you enter the intersection? Or do you just want to roll on through and pray nobody hits you from the side?
That's a great analogy. John Broons, the family business guy. John, what's the best way of people contacting you?
The internet, john@johnbroons.com, and I carry my mobile phone with me pretty much anywhere, 0433 131 070.